Hello, this is Mr. Sexton for the last time this semester. We are going to be talking today about several topics. One includes Chapter 11 in your textbook, interest groups, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about direct democracy, ways that we as American citizens can get involved in our political system. Okay, before we get into the conversation about the chapter, just want to remind everybody that today's materials are going to include not only this video that I'm doing now, but there's also going to be two videos that you need to watch. One video deals specifically with the activities that interest groups engage in to try and impact public policy. And then the second one deals with the idea of direct democracy, ways that we as Americans can get directly involved in the decisions that our governments make. Okay, now both of those videos are longer than what I need you to listen to. If you go to the Moodle site, you'll notice that directly under each of those videos, I tell you exactly at what point in the video you need to start. One of them, I think you start at 14 minutes and 14 seconds into the video. So all you need to do is watch from that point in the video forward. If you want to listen to the whole video, that's fine. It'll have some information that's not necessarily directly relevant to what's going to be on the exam. So if you have any questions about those videos, make sure you give me a call. Okay. Also, realize that all of you, except for just a handful of you, should have your grades for exam 3 in the grade book. There's a couple of you that I have yet to finish grading your short answer questions, so hopefully I will get those done early tomorrow morning. Okay, and also after you get done with the materials for today and doing today's quiz and things, make sure you realize that the exam will open up tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and needs to be done by Friday evening at 10 p.m. Okay, make sure you're aware that that's the time period that the exam will be open. Okay, if you have any questions about the exam, whether or not you need to take the exam. Because remember, the final exam is not required for individuals who have scored a 90% or above on the first 3 exams. So if you are unsure about whether you have to take the exam or not, make sure you call me, okay, before you just choose not to take the exam. Okay, if you have any question about any of that or anything that we've covered so far in the semester, as I said, make sure you give me a call. Now, Chapter 11 deals with interest groups, and I generally choose interest groups to talk about last or toward the end of the semester because it's important to understand how our country is organized. It's important to understand how Congress operates. It's important to understand how political parties operate because all of those things are important when we as citizens look at how are we going to try and impact our government. And what we've talked about so far in the semester include things like voting. It's a way we can impact our government. We can join political parties. It's a way that we can impact our government. We can run for political office. It's a way we can impact our government. But most people are not going to get involved to those levels. They're not going to run for office. Okay? They're not going to give huge amounts of money to political candidates. They're not going to run for their county political party leadership positions or their state party leadership positions. The things that most people do to try and impact the decisions the government makes is they'll join things called interest groups. And I need you to be watching this, reading the chapter and understanding what an interest group is. Understand what the primary purpose or goal of an interest group is. The primary goal or purpose of the National Rifle Association is slightly different than the primary goal of the American Association of Retired People. Obviously, the National Rifle Association wants to impact government decisions about guns. The American Association of Retired People want to impact government's decisions when it comes to policies dealing with senior citizens and retired individuals. So make sure you understand what an interest group is and what they're attempting to accomplish. Okay, make sure you read in the chapter the common types of interest groups, business interest groups and public interest groups and things of that nature. Make sure you can make sure you can define and explain the major types of interest groups. Another concept that they talk about in the chapter is they talk about pluralism. The concept of pluralism, that many different organizations, many different people should have an impact on the decisions our government makes. Related to pluralism is the idea that there are certain groups that are underrepresented within our society. There are plenty of interest groups who represent wealthy industries and wealthy individuals, but the organizations and the professions of lower income individuals tend to be underrepresented a little bit. So make sure you understand that idea that pluralism means many different groups should be involved in the process. But while we are a country that likes to claim pluralistic values, there are still groups that are underrepresented. Okay, also in the checkbook chapter, they talk about why people join interest groups, specific benefits that people get from interest groups. Some people join interest groups because it makes them feel good to be working on a certain cause. Some people join interest groups because they're looking out for their own financial well-being. Make sure you understand the different reasons that your textbook gives for people joining interest groups. Then make sure you read the section in the textbook that deals with free riders. It's a problem that interest groups have to deal with because, as we all know, we will all take something for free if we can get it without paying for it. So interest groups have to deal with that issue frequently. Okay, then as we're going into times when we have more technology and the internet and social media and all of those things are more common, interest groups are impacted by the internet. Interest groups are impacted by social media. Interest groups are impacted by this general proliferation of newspapers and television news and radio. Make sure you understand how interest groups are impacted by the growth of the internet and technology in general. Then your textbook is going to go into some detail on strategies or methods that interest groups use to impact the decisions that our government makes. Make sure you're reading this section in the textbook and kind of balance it with the video that you're watching that I give you that talks about some of the specific methods and ways that interest groups try to impact public policy. Okay, when you get done reading the chapter, okay, you should hopefully be able to take a step back from the whole semester and say, hey, as a citizen of the United States, I can impact my government by voting for people. I can impact my government by joining an interest group. Or I can impact my government by writing a letter to an elected official. But the thing that we realize through all of those things, if I join an interest group, I ask the interest group to impact the government for me. If I vote for an elected official, I'm asking the person that I elect to impact the government on my behalf. Again, if I write a letter to an elected official, I'm asking that elected official to go do things on my behalf. At the national level in this country, it's impossible or virtually impossible for me as a citizen to get directly involved in the decision making process of the government. I can give my opinion, I can ask people to act in a certain way on my behalf, but there's no real chance for me to directly vote or impact the decisions the government makes. When we look at the state level of government, all states give their citizens some level of what we call direct democracy. Every state has some sort of mechanism where individual citizens can help write a law. The citizen does it without having to go through the legislature. There are certain states where citizens, after a person is elected, the citizens themselves can unelect that individual. There are times when certain states give their citizens the right to look at a law or an action that the government has taken at the state level and say, no, we disagree with that. We don't care if everybody in the state legislature wanted this law. We're going to vote to have that law removed. These examples of direct democracy are found at the state level. They're not found at the national level. And the video that you'll be watching today deals specifically with 3 of these examples of direct democracy: initiative, referendum, and recall. In watching this video, make sure you understand and you can distinguish the difference between referendum, recall, and initiative. There are going to be at least one question on the exam about those, and I may even ask your opinion based on watching the video, whether or not you feel those types of direct democracy are a good thing, or if they tend to lead to mob rule or problems with the government operating. Okay, so please make sure you're able to watch those 2 videos. They're YouTube videos. If you have any questions about any of that, make sure you give me a call. Also, as you're preparing for the final exam, make sure you realize that the final exam is comprehensive. In that it'll cover all of the materials that were covered on the first 3 exams. Plus, it'll cover the chapters that we covered this week that you have not been tested over yet. Okay, bureaucracy, the courts, and interest groups, and direct democracy. Again, make sure you give me a call, and good luck, and have a great semester next semester, unless, of course, you're graduating after this class.